we were sending a clear message to the establishment that we wanted change. Both Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson were attempting to make that change happen in very different ways.
Should you do it through the political system or should you do it outside of the political system? I would choose to do it through the system. That is what the radical Islamists want to destroy, so let's not help them destroy it.
There is a necessary power in Christianity for the West.
What is it that made the West be the envy of the world? Sooner or later, you're going to have to get these Judeo-Christian traditions.
We also have to be proud of our history. The woke mind virus wants to make us embarrassed.
This woke ideology and its marriage with radical Islam, saying the white heterosexual male is an oppressor. Up until recently, it was the white man's burden to save the world. The woke ideology is this new racism against white people.
In our biggest democratic vote in history, the vote to leave the European Union, we were, as British people, sending a clear message to the establishment that we wanted change. We wanted direct political change. Now, that hasn't happened, and you know the reasons why it hasn't happened. So we now have two big figures in the UK who are attempting to make that change happen in very different ways. And I'm interested in your views on both of them. So, of course, first you have Nigel Farage, the Brexit king, now the leader of the Reform UK party. I think there's a genuine chance that he could be Prime Minister in 2029. It's going to be tough for all of the reasons that we've discussed. But his tactic is to do this the political way, to soften his rhetoric, to try and appease, I guess, the establishment to a degree. Then you have Tommy Robinson, the flame-throwing anti-Islam leader who doesn't want to do it by political means and wants to be on the streets and is advocating for a more radical approach. So I'm fascinated to know your view on both Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson.
So again, I don't know enough about either one of them more than just what you read in the newspapers. And of course, like many people, when the label xenophobe or far right or racist is thrown around, I find that not credible. So my instinct, my impulse is not to look at Tommy Robinson and think, oh, he's far right. I think that's he's labeled that way because of the issues that he's talking about and he's raising. But I think that the question you're asking is, should you do it through the political system or should you do it outside of the political system in a radical, flame-throwing way? And I don't think we have a choice in this. I don't think you can sit there and say, you do it the radical way, you do it through the... I would choose to do it through the system. I would choose to say, first of all, it's this system that's democratic, okay? The rule of law, the political culture that we have, we formed over many centuries, that's parliamentary. That's exactly what we wanted to preserve. That is what the radical Islamists wanted to destroy. So let's not help them destroy it. So let's do it through the system and get the majority we need to change the policies, to get to the policies that we need to get to. But I think there are challenges, such as the civil service. I mean, we've seen, even with the former Tory governments, that you could at some point persuade politicians to take on these issues, but they would run up when it comes to the deportation of unwanted people here, when it comes to closing the borders, when it comes to closing the mosques, when it comes to closing these charities. They would run up against the civil service and the NGOs that would frustrate that. And so that some of these issues are much, much more entrenched. I find NGOs undemocratic. They are not elected. I find my view of the civil services, they should implement the policies of those who are elected. They are not elected. And I think we have to have those confrontations with these structures, the people who are within these structures. And is Nigel Farage going to do that? I don't know. I don't know enough about him. But I do know that the population of Britain is just as fed up as the population in the Netherlands and in France and increasingly in America. And so we're just heading for more and more confrontation. So you might as well do it through the system and do it the rightful and peaceful way.
Yeah, no, I do think that makes total sense, actually. What about your own personal safety now, Ayaan? Because it's obviously a difficult conversation, but we saw what happened with Salman Rushdie. These extremists will not stop sometimes. So, do you still live day to day in fear of your life?
I live within that protection, the bubble of protection. Obviously, security is one of the key things about security is you don't talk about it.
No, totally. I understand that. Can I ask about Christianity? Because for folk who don't know, after you were de radicalized, and correct me if I'm wrong in the characterization, but you decided that you would embrace atheism and many of the themes put forward by the late, great Christopher Hitchens. But in recent years, I think it's fair to say that you have realized that actually there is a necessary power in Christianity for the West to take back control.
I think that if you want to appreciate why the West is peaceful and prosperous and why it's a magnet for poor people in poor countries, countries that are at war, you are going to have to reflect on what is it that made the West be the envy of the world. And the foundations, we always only look at the material things. Look, the West is rich and it has these welfare states that are dishing out money. But how did we get here? Where do the moral foundations of the West lie? And sooner or later, you're going to have to get to these Judeo-Christian traditions. The West built on the philosophies of the Greeks and the Romans and Christianity. And of course, before Christianity, the Old Testament, Judaism. The more you find out, the more I find out about the history, the political theories that gave way to these wonderful, wonderful nations that we now call the West, the more you see their Christian roots, the more you see their biblical roots. And so when you have a force, a religious force coming in, wanting to dominate and saying, you Westerners, you are decadent, you have no religious faith, the response is not to cower. The response is to say, we do have a moral framework. We are Christian nations, and our Christianity is superior to what you have to offer. That's why you're here, by the way. And look at the countries that are established on Sharia law and Sharia philosophy and the philosophy of the Prophet Muhammad or the Quran, and look at our countries. And so you don't need to you don't need to lecture us about these things. But it's been very hard for the West to do this because of neglecting Christianity, because of identifying as Western or post-Christian. And it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to fight a spiritual force with material means.
Is woke ideology dangerous in your view?
Extremely so. Woke ideology is perhaps the most dangerous ideology in 2024. It has to do with the time. Woke ideology is arising from within and wants to destroy. The words they use is deconstruct and dismantle Western society, Western culture, Western institutions, everything. And it is coming about and gaining traction at a time when the West has got so many adversaries. It's got the Islamist adversary to deal with. It's got China, the CCP. It's got to deal with Putin. It's a time of great instability. And the woke ideology is causing a lot of polarization. The woke ideology has basically hijacked center-left parties, and all the institutions that are connected with center-left parties has hijacked universities and schools. So the woke ideology, first and foremost, and it's an internal cancer. So the woke ideology, first and foremost, is the one that we have to fight with everything in us to subdue it. And it's a weak ideology, because all it has to say is it wants to destroy things. Ask them, what would you like to build? What are we to expect after you've dismantled everything? Take anything. Take, the government system. Through diversity, equity, and inclusion, they're bringing in the radical Islamists. They're destroying the idea of nationhood by diminishing borders or saying get rid of them altogether. Look at what they're doing to the rule of law. They are diminishing, look at the entire justice system. They complain is a system of injustice. They say they want to defund the police. They want to turn the courts. I know the story in America more than this story, but into these political tools that advance their woke agenda. We call it packing the courts. And then look at what they're doing to the schools. The humanities, which they have completely destroyed. They say everything, white man is the oppressor, everyone else is oppressed. So the legacy of the white man is the one that has to be completely taken apart. These are very, very dangerous people with very, very dangerous ideas. And I think we have to stand up to them. And the way to do it is to preserve the freedom of speech so that we can debate with them, we can expose their ideas, and we can then refuse these diversity, equity, inclusion, and all these other nice sounding schemes that they bring into. We've got to take care of our Jewish population. And just from October 7 until now, the anniversary of October 7 is coming up. It is scandalous that Jewish minorities in Europe feel as if they're living through the 1930s again because of this woke ideology and its marriage with radical Islam, the Red-Green Alliance. And so woke ideology is extremely dangerous, and all of us have to unite against it. Remember liberalism. We say we are a liberal democracy. Liberalism started with this idea of protecting the individual. Before the law, you are an individual. These woke people are on about groups. They divide society into different groups, and then they incite these groups against one another. And they incite all of these groups against the white heterosexual male. So it is racist, it's divisive. And in many ways, if you look at the transgender politics, or gender politics, or the climate politics, this is a ticket to primitivism. Want to deindustrialize, and they want to say there are no men or women, it's all one big blob of whatever they want to invent that day. So yes, woke ideology is extremely, extremely dangerous, and you've seen what it has done. It's came from Europe, but it got cultivated in America, and it's now in Europe, and I hope that we have the stamina to resist it.
I hope so too. First though, have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? Well, I recently saw a video he made and I was shocked. He's in his 80s and still kicking butt and working out and staying active. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by just making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger, her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Chuck made a special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/outspoken or by clicking in the link in the show notes below this video on YouTube and Rumble. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/outspoken and click on the link in the description below to watch the video now. You simply will not believe how simple it is. Just a reminder, the legendary Chuck Norris is a whopping 84 years old, and I have to be honest, he has more energy than me. He discovered he could create dramatic changes to his health simply focusing on 3 things that sabotage our body as we age. So watch his method by clicking the link in the description box below, but I'll give it to you now as well. sharkdefense.com/outspoken, or you can also scan on the QR code on screen right now. And I think finally, Ayaan, we also have to be proud of our history, right? Especially in England, because one of the things that the woke mind virus wants to do is to make us embarrassed and ashamed about so many of the great things that the British Empire brought to the world. So is it important actually that we start to embrace our history with positivity rather than the sort of shame that the proponents of woke ideology want us to feel?
Absolutely. When the woke ideologues run around saying the white heterosexual male is an oppressor, you've got to throw back at them that without the white man, where would we be? It's the white man who fought slavery. It's the white man who fought Hitler and stood up to him. It's the white man who builds and builds and builds and is generous enough to take all of these medicines and health care all across the world. I was 12 years old, and I was 14 years old when my Quran teacher hit my head against the wall. And I was taken to a hospital we couldn't afford, the Nairobi hospital. And the doctor who treated me was a white man from Italy, incredibly gentle. And he did it for nothing. It was for free. That's also the white man. So you want to focus on the white man who did bad things. But that white man was subdued and overcome and taken off the stage by all the good white men who organized to do good things. And where are the brown men who organized to do good things? And where are the, where is their toil? I think it's just wrong to accept these things, but it's also easy to guilt trip the white man because he has left his Christian faith and is only left with the sentiment of guilt and doesn't know how to respond. I think I'd like to see white young men who are being demonized now stand up to these evil forces and talk more forcefully about why the white man is essentially a good man. I mean, up until recently, it was the white man's burden to save the world. And now we're being told he is the source of all evil, and only if he is destroyed will justice come around, because that's what the woke ideology is about. The woke ideology is this new racism against white people, and especially white males. And that is to demoralize him, to emasculate him, so that they can come and just rob this civilization and transform it into rubble. This is the thing about the woke ideology. The end game of the woke ideology is rubble. You see, the Islamists want to introduce Sharia law, and eventually that too leads to rubble through a great deal of violence. But the woke ideology is so linear in its quest for just simple destruction. And so the white man should be smart enough to stand up to them and tell them to F off. Sorry, my language.
No, I love it. What a point to end on. F off. No, indeed. Well, look, I think the term bravery is very much overused in society, but for me, you define it, Ayaan. I personally find you incredibly inspiring. You're a reason for us to be brave and speak up in moments when we think, oh goodness, are we going to lose everything? Because you truly put everything on the line to fight for what was right. So I so appreciate you being here on Outspoken today. I am going to put the links to your brilliant podcast and your brilliant Substack in the show notes. And I really, really recommend everyone follows and subscribes, because I do, and I absolutely love them. So thank you so much for being here today, Ayaan Hirsi Ali.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much. And also for your work. Yeah. Well, at least you're one white man who's not going to be quiet. So good.
No, they can't shut me up. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please do subscribe if you want lots more clips and interviews like that. Plus, if you want to watch our totally uncensored after show, then visit www.outspoken.live.